Hey everyone, today we are going to be talking about inner child work. Okay, so today's topic is the child who takes on the triggers. Okay, this is crucial information to understand about doing inner child work because this is where we bring the unconscious into the consciousness so we can start to bring awareness to the things that need to heal within us so we can stop being triggered by everything that people do around us. Okay, so that's the intention for today's video. I want people to leave this video feeling like, okay, I can now start to go within and explore the things that people are triggering in me so I can begin my process of healing my inner child, so I can start to step into the awesomeness that you are. Okay, so the first thing we need to understand is there's two entities of an inner child. So there's the playful, the exploratory, and then there's the wounded, okay? So it's no different than our ego selves versus our essence. So as a child, we have the ability to experience these both. Today, when we're talking about the triggered child, we're going to be talking about the wounded inner child. So a child that gets raised in a household where there's abuse, neglect, trauma, any sort of things that occur like that, any sort of suffering, we become our development becomes arrested, and we develop this wounded inner child, and we almost get stuck at this place in our development emotionally if we don't have an opportunity to work through and process some of these things that have happened to us through expression. Typically what happens is we shut down. We don't have the outlet to be able to connect with ourselves in this way. So we end up getting stuck, okay? And then we forward 20 years and we're in our adulthood, and we're wondering why we're getting triggered by people, and we're wondering why we're unhappy. And in my opinion, it is because we need to move past some of these things that occurred in our childhood, and we need to be able to bring honor to these things. We need to bring truth to these things, and we need to be able to shine light on these things so we can start to heal them. So what we need to understand is that our inner child communicates to us through our emotions. Okay, these emotions can be subconscious or they can be conscious, meaning there can be awareness about them or there can be no awareness about them. So if you're wondering why you're triggered all the time and you just have no idea and you're just acting on these triggers and triggering people back, it's essentially like you're just poking people's fires and they're poking your fire. It becomes a very, very toxic way to live. So when we talk about bringing consciousness to this, we need to understand that we want to bring consciousness to this so we can stop poking people's fires, so then we stop getting our own fires poked. Okay, because at the end of the day, it's a choice. We choose whether we want to engage in this dysfunctional, toxic behavior, or we can choose to move into states of healing and liberating ourselves from this dysfunction. Okay, so I want to ask you, how can you step into your awesomeness if you have this afraid and wounded inner child inside of you? Right? This child's number one goal is to self-preserve because it does not want to feel pain and suffering ever again. So this is why it becomes so prevalent in intimate relationships, because we don't, the main ingredient in order to have a successful intimate relationship is to open your heart, right? Be vulnerable. But the inner child that's wounded does not know how to open its heart and be vulnerable, because its number one goal is to preserve status quo so that it doesn't have to experience more pain and suffering. Okay? So what we need to do is we need to learn how we can heal these things so we're not stuck in this woundedness, so we can therefore learn how to trust again. We can learn how to participate in life in the way that's going to make us feel more fulfilling. We can take risks. We can be vulnerable and be the things that we need to step out of our comfort zone, and do this in a way that makes us feel confident and secure. Okay? So we need to understand that when we become triggered by people, this is essentially just a projection of our own shit. Okay? So when somebody triggers us, we are having something inside of us become triggered. So whether this is an incident that happened when you were younger and somebody does something in your adult years where it therefore triggers you, what we need to do is we need to learn how to own our trigger. Okay, because what we're doing right now is we're displacing it. We're putting it outside of ourselves and saying, okay, you just incited this trigger in me. This is your behavior that is pissing me off. But at the end of the day, the trigger is yours. You need to own it. You need to look at why you are triggered. Because if within this why am I triggered, there's a gem there waiting for you of learning and engaging with yourself in a way that's going to show you what needs to be healed within in order for you to step into your awesomeness. So when we project is essentially when we self-reject. Because when we reject these things about ourselves, we create a split off version of ourselves that we just don't want to be a part of. And usually that's the inner child. That's the wounded inner child. That is the fuel to why you're being triggered. Because you've split off and you've rejected these things about yourself that you don't like, these experiences that you've had to go through, that you've had to endure, that are holding you back. Okay, and this is why we're getting triggered. So we need to learn how to shift our mindset on what these triggers mean for us so we can start to engage with these triggers in a different way. Suddenly you're going to realize that you're not going to be triggered all the time because these triggers are the gifts within your tests. Okay? The universe is testing you in a way to help you evolve spiritually, and these triggering people are giving you that gift. So part of this process is going to be to make that mindset shift that these people that are triggering you are actually triggering your awareness of what needs to heal within. There is no greater gift in life than that. Somebody providing you awareness of your inner process. So when somebody triggers you, instead of being triggered and owning inside the trigger, I want you to stand outside the trigger. Still own it, but I want you to look at, okay, what is this trigger actually telling me about my being, about my inner self? Why am I triggered? Start to explore that and use that as ammunition to make change in your life that is going to help you step into the person that you want to become. Okay, so that's going to be the key of owning your triggers and becoming spiritually. You will always become spiritually aligned with these people because the universe will put people in front of you that are going to trigger you to help you heal your stuff. You can choose to act within these situations subconsciously or consciously, with awareness, without awareness. And I'm telling you, your life will always be harder when you engage with it in an unconscious way because you're never learning. You're just behaving and you're just acting in ways that are acting out and actually poking other people's fires, and they're poking your fire. Okay? So instead of sweeping under the rug these things that you experienced as a child and not honoring them, you're actually telling your inner child that it is a failure or it doesn't deserve to move out of the space that it's in. And I'm telling you, you will not be able to move forward into this awesomeness that you want to create until you are holding the hand of your inner child and walking side by side. That is the goal that we need to achieve in this process, is to make sure that we are walking with our inner child and we are taking that inner child and we are giving it the things that it did not receive as a child going through these things that it experienced. So that is the birthplace of self-love, right? It's unlearning these things in your life that you've learned to not love about yourself. Is you got to unlearn those. And that's what the inner child work is about. It's about going back to these states of where we did learn to split off and reject things about ourselves. And we need to learn to practice acceptance, love, validation, reassurance, and practice safety to be able to step into the awesomeness that we want to step into. So I'm looking forward to this week's series. This is really cool stuff. Love to explore it with you guys. Have a beautiful day. Take care.